I have never in my entire life hoped so desperately for my girlfriend to cheat on me. I swear my girlfriend Chloe had just brought a man back to the apartment I was renting. I stared at the live feed from the security camera on my phone, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, a rhythm of anxiety, nervousness, but mostly of pure, unadulterated anticipation. On the screen, Chloe ushered the guy onto the sofa. She went to the fridge, pulled out an ice-cold Coke, and handed it to him before sitting down right beside him. The guy took the can but didn't open it. He just sat on the coffee table the moment Chloe was settled next to him. He reached out and covered her hand with his. I saw a flicker of hesitation on Chloe's face, but she didn't pull away. She let him hold it. My eyes went wide. I didn't blink. My gaze locked on the pixelated scene unfolding on my phone. Seeing no resistance, the man grew bolder. He tugged her hand, pulling her into his arms. Chloe seemed caught off guard, her mouth falling slightly open in shock. Maybe she was too stunned to react. Or maybe he was holding her too tightly. Either way, she didn't push him away. "Chloe, I'm crazy about you," the man whispered, his voice urgent, completely insane. But an embrace clearly wasn't enough for him. Sensing her lack of struggle, he lunged in, his mouth aiming for hers. My own breath hitched. This was it. The tension ratcheted up, my anticipation soaring. Was this finally happening? "Mark, don't!" Chloe shoved the man Mark away with a sudden burst of strength. But her protest was weak. Her face was flushed a deep crimson, and she was breathing heavily. Maybe it was guilt from bringing him back to my apartment and letting things get this far. Or maybe she was genuinely flustered and aroused. It was hard to tell. Mark, having been pushed away, looked momentarily embarrassed. But the look vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a mask of profound sincerity. "Chloe, I'm sorry," he said, his eyes fixed on her. I got carried away." "It's okay, I know," she murmured, her face still red as she looked down at her hands. "I don't blame you." Hearing that, a grin spread across Mark's face. "But I have a boyfriend," Chloe continued, the words deflating him. "You know that. We can't do this." For Mark, it was like a bucket of ice water to the face. His triumphant smile slowly faded. Watching from my phone, I felt a familiar sigh escape me. The anticipation drained away, replaced by a thick, heavy wave of disappointment. "Chloe, can I be honest with you?" Mark said after a moment of silence. "Don't get mad." "Okay. What is it?" she asked, looking up at him. "That boyfriend of yours." "He's not good enough for you," Mark said, his tone righteous and firm. "You're from here. You're an only child. He's not. I don't know his family situation, but he's been working in this city for 4 years and he's still renting. He hasn't even managed a down payment on a condo. My guess is his family's got nothing. He can't afford to build a life here. He doesn't deserve you. Dude, you're on a roll. Keep talking." I muttered to my phone screen. "If you can convince her to break up with me today, I'll build a shrine in your honor." Chloe was silent for a long time after hearing Mark's speech. Finally, she said his family isn't doing that badly. They're not from here, but his parents both have stable government jobs back in their hometown. It's a dual-income household. They're better off than most. Have you been to his hometown? Met his parents? Mark pressed immediately. Chloe shook her head. No. She was telling the truth. She'd never been to my hometown, but it was also true that my parents work for the state. I told her that. I thought about taking her back to meet them once, but I quickly dismissed the idea. She never brought it up, so I pretended it never crossed my mind. It's not that I'm a scumbag. There were reasons. I'll get to that later. Right now, the live feed was more important. So, you're just taking his word for it. Mark's voice dripped with condescending concern. Chloe, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you're too naive. You believe everything he says? If I were him, working a dead-end job, renting in a city alone, and I landed a local girl who's an only child, you bet I'd paint my family like they were royalty. He was laying it on thick, but his goal was as obvious as the nose on his face. Still, I zoomed in on the camera, studying his eyes. I needed to know one thing. Did he really think Chloe was naive? They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. You can fake a facial expression, but the eyes are much harder to control. And though Mark was putting on a show of heartfelt concern, I could see a glint of cunning in his gaze. Seeing that sign, I let out a breath of relief. He really didn't think she was that simple. And if she was simple, she was easy to manipulate. It meant Mark wouldn't give up until he got what he wanted. But from my 4 years with Chloe, I knew better. She wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but she was far from the innocent little lamb Mark thought she was. The fact that she didn't reject him the second he touched her hand, the fact that she didn't resist when he pulled her into his arms, that was all the proof I needed. She was already entertaining the idea. If she wasn't interested, she would have shot him down, maybe even chewed him out the moment his fingers brushed hers. She wouldn't have brought him back to my apartment in the first place, and she damn sure wouldn't still be sitting here chatting with him after he tried to kiss her. Thinking this, a fresh spark of hope ignited within me, and the disappointment vanished. "Really?" Chloe said, a thoughtful, confused look on her face. "You might have a point. Maybe I should ask him to take me to his hometown to meet his parents, just to make sure he's telling the truth." Mark was clearly not expecting his words to backfire like this. He stared at her dumbfounded. My heart, on the other hand, seized with terror. "Mark, you son of a—" "I see that at the screen. We better think of something right now to shut that idea down. If she asks to meet my parents, I swear to God I will hunt you down and kill you." Mark didn't let me down. His eyes darted back and forth for a second, and then he said, "See, that's what I mean about you being naive. Why should you have to be the one to ask? If he really cared, he would have already offered. He hasn't suggested taking you home to meet his parents because he's not serious about you. Think about it. Does that make sense?" "I guess so." Chloe hesitated. "So, what do you think I should do?" "You shouldn't do anything," Mark said, his voice firm and decisive. "You wait and see how long it takes him to bring it up. And listen, you two have been together for what? 3 years? You need to set a deadline in your head. If he hasn't asked to take you home by then, you have to dump him. It's been too long. It means his heart isn't really in it." Hearing Mark's quick-witted recovery, I wanted to give the guy a standing ovation. Even I thought that sounded reasonable. I thought, you, my friend, are a goddamn genius. I'm rooting for you. Go get her. Chloe didn't say anything more, but she gave a slow, deliberate nod. I couldn't tell if she was actually setting a mental deadline for me, a point of no return, after which she'd finally break up with me. If she was, I owed Mark big time. Forget a shrine. I'd thank his ancestors for generations to come. "Anyway, enough about that," Chloe said, standing up. "I need to grab those files so we can get back to the office." She walked over to the small room I used as a home office and came back with a folder. Mark stood up too, and they walked toward the front door together. As they did, he reached out and took her hand again. She gave a token little tug, a half-hearted attempt to pull away, but then she relaxed, letting him hold her hand as they walked out of my apartment together. I switched off the camera app, stuffed my phone in my pocket, and pulled out a cigarette. I lit it, the flame trembling slightly. I was sitting on the concrete steps of the fire stairwell in my office building. I had hidden cameras all over the apartment set up to send me a notification whenever they detected movement. Chloe had no idea they were there. I'd installed them to keep an eye on her, but it was never about catching her cheating. What I saw today was completely unexpected, but for me, it was a welcome surprise, a blessing in disguise. Because I swear to you, I have never been so desperate for my girlfriend Chloe to cheat on me. In fact, before today, the thought had never even crossed my mind that she would. It was only after watching that scene unfold that this desperate hope took root. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some kind of sicko. I'm a normal guy. No one wants their girlfriend to cheat, to be made a fool of. I'm no different. But right now, this desperate hope is born of pure, unadulterated necessity. I met Chloe 3 years ago. We fell for each other fast. In the beginning, she was the sweetest, most gentle person I'd ever met. For a while, I honestly thought I'd found the love of my life, but the honeymoon phase didn't last. Her gentle nature held out for less than a year before her true self started to bleed through. I remember our first real fight with perfect clarity. It was June 15th, 2 years ago. She asked me if I noticed anything different about her that day. I looked her up and down, left and right, and came up with nothing. It turned out she bought a new lipstick, a different shade. I'm a guy. I don't wear the damn stuff. How was I supposed to know the difference between cinnamon spice and toasted chestnut? To me, they were the exact same color. All I said was, "Don't those two look the same?" And she exploded. A hysterical, screaming rage. I wasn't paying attention to her. I didn't care about her. The worst part was she started punching the wall, her fist clenched over and over. The force of it, the sound, it was terrifying. But at the time, I didn't grasp the severity of the situation. I just felt bad for her. I apologized, I soothed her, I calmed her down. I had no idea that was the beginning of my nightmare. Or to put it another way, the moment Chloe finally started showing me who she really was. Forget couples. Even married people fight, right? Of course, Chloe and I argued over the next 2 years. With every fight, her true nature became clearer, and I grew more and more afraid. Throwing her phone, smashing a laptop, that became routine. In 2 years, she destroyed 4 phones and 1 computer. The reasons for the fights were insane. She'd be binge-watching a show on Netflix, and I'd start downloading a game. The buffering, she claimed, was a sign of my disrespect. We'd get into a screaming match. We'd see a news story and have different opinions. Fight. I liked to dress in a simple, casual style. She wanted me in suits. That was grounds for war. But the worst part was that every single time she would fly into a rage and start breaking things, and it kept getting worse. Later, I was swamped at work and took a little too long to reply to one of her texts. She showed up at my office building and cornered me on the sidewalk out front, screaming at me right there on the street. I couldn't calm her down, and I didn't want to make a public scene, so I just turned and walked away. And she ran into the middle of the street and laid down in traffic. This wasn't just about her being unbearable anymore. This was about her getting hit by a car. I had no choice. I ran out, waving at cars to stop, and dragged her back to the sidewalk, letting her hit and slap me until she had vented all her rage and finally calmed down. Sometime after that, I was playing a video game while she was taking a nap. She suddenly stormed out of the bedroom and started a fight because she'd had a dream that I cheated on her. The reason was ridiculous enough, but I don't know if she'd gotten a taste for it during that incident outside my office because this time she got violent. She attacked me like a rabid animal, biting, scratching, hitting. I was truly scared. This was a clear pattern of violent behavior. I told her firmly that we were done. We were breaking up. She walked into the kitchen, grabbed a fruit knife, and sliced her wrist right in front of me. I immediately took back everything I'd said. That was about 6 months ago. You think things got better after that? Wrong. Dead wrong. In the last 6 months, she still started fights, but with a new twist. No more cutting her wrists. I guess that hurt too much. Now she jumps out of windows. Don't think I'm joking, she really goes for it. One time, if I hadn't lunged and grabbed her arm at the last second, she would have gone straight out. You have to understand, this isn't the slow, dramatic kind of thing where she sits on the windowsill to scare you. This is a 100-meter dash, full sprint, and leap kind of thing. How could I ever call her bluff? This was a human life, and besides, we've been together for 3 years. It's not like there were no feelings left at all. Plus, like Mark said, she's an only child. If something really happened to her, what would her parents do? Bury their own daughter? The thought alone makes my skin crawl. Most importantly, I saw a news story online. A 22-year-old woman committed suicide after a breakup, and her parents sued the ex-boyfriend for over $12,500. You know how the court ruled? They ordered him to pay them $30,000 for emotional distress. It's a true story. You can look it up. So now it doesn't matter what we argue about. The second something doesn't go her way, it's the jump threat. You dare argue with me? Jump threat. I hit you and you dare to dodge? Jump threat. You refuse to do what I say? Jump threat. This is the girlfriend you think I should take home to meet my parents. I'd have to be insane. I would never, ever let her meet them. She wasn't a girlfriend. She was a ticking time bomb. About 2 months ago, my company started a new project and I was put on the team. It was a rush job, so we were working a lot of overtime. Some nights it was so late I just crashed at the office. And what do you think happened? I get a call from the police telling me to get home immediately because my girlfriend was about to jump off the roof. I rushed back, and after a lot of pleading, I finally managed to talk her down. I asked her what was wrong, thinking we hadn't even fought recently. Turns out it was because I've been working too much overtime and hadn't been home as much. She felt neglected and couldn't handle it. I got a stern lecture from the cops about how I shouldn't neglect my girlfriend, no matter how busy work gets. I was speechless. What could I say? I just nodded and promised it would never happen again. In today's climate, they just gave her talking to. If a guy had caused that much of a scene, he'd be in handcuffs the moment they got him down. After that incident, without telling her, I secretly installed a bunch of hidden cameras around the apartment. I was terrified she'd pull another stunt like that. Today, when she brought Mark home, it triggered a motion alert. I opened the app, afraid she was having another episode. I never expected to see what I saw. Couples fight. It's normal. But Chloe fights with her life on the line. Who can live like that? Trapped with an emotionally unstable, no, a violent, self-harming, abusive person. In a social climate where I had absolutely no way out. I couldn't see any hope. After 2 years of mental and physical torment, I had become deeply pessimistic. I thought this was just my life now. I had honestly resigned myself to it. I'd even made my peace with the worst-case scenario, marrying her, never letting her meet my family, and just embracing an unhealthy lifestyle. Junk food, smoking, drinking, all of it, to speed up my own death. Life is only a few decades. Grit your teeth, and it's over. As for happiness, that ship had sailed for me. So when I saw what happened today, I could have wept with joy. It felt like a miracle from heaven, proof that even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. Sitting on the stairwell, I smoked my cigarette in silence. From the looks of it, this Mark was one of Chloe's co-workers. They saw each other every day. Should I start following them? Don't even suggest a private investigator. That stuff you see in movies is illegal here, and no one does that work. And even if you found someone shady enough to take the job, it would cost a fortune I didn't have. After thinking it over, I decided to do nothing. Just wait and watch. Chloe's behavior today showed she was open to it. And Mark's performance made it clear he wouldn't stop until he sealed the deal. And since she brought him back to my place once, she'd surely do it again. I'd already endured 2 years of hell. I could wait a little longer. I had plenty of patience. I finished my cigarette, went back to my desk, and worked through the rest of the afternoon. When it was time to clock out, I went straight home. My apartment is close to my office, which is why I rented it in the first place. When I got there, Chloe wasn't back yet. The can of Coke was still sitting on the coffee table. I left it there, sat down on the couch, and started scrolling through TikTok. About half an hour later, Chloe walked in. "Hey, you're back," I said, looking up from my phone. "What do you want to eat tonight?" Even though Chloe and I had been living together for 3 years, neither of us knew how to cook. We almost always ordered takeout. "I ordered pizza on my way home. It should be here soon," she said, coming over and sitting down next to me. I was watching her out of the corner of my eye. As she sat, she noticed the can of Coke she'd forgotten to put back in the fridge. A flash of panic crossed her face. Immediately, she composed herself, picked up the can as if nothing was wrong, popped it open, and took a sip before setting it back down. Then she pulled out her own phone and started scrolling. I pretended I hadn't seen her panic, but inside my confidence grew. That flicker of fear told me she still had a sense of shame. And as long as she cared about saving face, the chances of me getting a clean breakup after I had proof of her cheating increased exponentially. Of course, that was just my theory. I'd have to wait and see what really happened. As luck would have it, my company launched another new project, and they made me the project lead. This one wasn't as rushed as the last, but I still went home and told Chloe that I'd been promoted and things were going to be incredibly busy for a while. From that day on, I started coming home late, even when I had nothing to do. I acted like I was constantly swamped with work, buried in overtime. I don't know if her affections had already shifted to Mark or if her own ideas were getting stronger, but this time, my frequent late nights didn't trigger any episodes. About 2 weeks later, one afternoon around 4, the clear blue sky began to darken from the south. Ominous black clouds rolled in, swallowing the daylight. The air grew heavy and thick, pressing down until it felt hard to breathe. A big storm was coming, but by the time I was supposed to leave work, the rain still hadn't started. The clouds just got thicker, the pressure lower, and a low rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. A storm like that was bound to break eventually. I had planned on heading home early, but then a real problem came up with the project. I had no choice but to stay late with the rest of my team. I sent Chloe a text. "Hey, something came up with the project. Have to work late tonight. Not sure when I'll be home. If it gets too late, I'll just crash at the office." No matter what, we hadn't broken up yet, and she hadn't actually cheated. It was only right to let her know. She's from here, and weather like this meant a thunderstorm was almost certain. I knew she was terrified of thunder. She could always go stay at her parents' place. Her family lived across town, which was a bit of a drive, but it was an option. The main reason she'd moved in with me was because my apartment was much closer to her office than her parents' house was. To my surprise, about 40 minutes later, I got a notification from my security camera app. I opened it and saw that Chloe hadn't gone to her parents'. She was back at my apartment. The project issue needed my full attention, so I put my phone away and got back to work with my colleagues. Around 9:30, the distant thunder grew louder and closer. The wind picked up. The storm was finally about to break. I told my team I was stepping out for a minute and went down to the building's entrance for a cigarette. The pre-storm wind was damp but cool, a welcome relief from the stuffy office air conditioning. I lit my smoke and looked up at the inky black sky. Plink plunk. Fat raindrops started to fall one after another. Then a brilliant fork of purple lightning ripped across the sky, followed by a deafening crack. The thunder was so loud I could feel the vibration in my chest. Or maybe that was just my imagination. Lightning flashed again and again, each bolt followed by a roar of thunder. The storm had been brewing for so long, it wasn't going to let up anytime soon. I stood at the entrance just watching the downpour, feeling the raw power of the storm while my phone vibrated in my pocket again. Another security alert. I pulled it out, opened the app, and saw Chloe dressed in a silk slip nightgown opening the apartment door. A man stood on the other side, soaked to the bone. She let him in. It was Mark. "What happened?" Mark asked as he stepped inside, wiping rain from his face. "Weather like this and your boyfriend isn't here with you. Does he not know you're afraid of thunder?" "He's the lead on a new project at his company," Chloe said, her voice small and pathetic. "He texted me tonight, said there was a problem and he has to work late. He might not come home at all." "Wow," Mark sighed, shaking his head. He said nothing else. Seeing him drenched, Chloe hurried to the bathroom and came back with a bath towel. Mark took it without a word, pulled off his shirt, and started drying himself off. Chloe took his wet shirt and hung it on a hanger. When she came back to the living room, Mark had finished toweling off and had tossed the damn towel onto the sofa. She stared at him. He stared back at her. Neither of them spoke. Suddenly, another bolt of lightning lit up the room, followed instantly by a world-shattering clap of thunder. Chloe screamed, lunged forward, and threw herself into Mark's arms, clinging to him tightly. I don't need to describe the sordid details of what happened next. They went from the living room to the bedroom, and from the bedroom to the balcony. I just stood there smoking, watching it all on a live feed. My heart wasn't exactly calm, but I didn't feel much of anything else. It was all happening just as I'd expected. It was entirely predictable. I let out a long, slow breath, closed the app, and went back upstairs to work. The cameras saved everything, not just to a memory card, but to the cloud. The files were safe, but I didn't plan on confronting her right away. That would be too obvious. I finished my work and slept at the office that night. When I got home the next evening, Chloe acted as if nothing had happened, as if she'd never betrayed me at all. 5 days later, after I'd edited the camera footage into a concise little video, I came home from work and played it for her. She didn't even have to watch. She knew exactly what was on the screen. She had been there after all. "You put hidden cameras in the apartment?" she shrieked, her face contorting with rage. She spun around and made a break for the window, the jump threat right on cue. I grabbed her, my grip firm, and stared directly into her eyes. "Chloe," I said, my voice shaking with practiced emotion. "After 3 years together, you do this to me? How could you?" Before she could respond, I pressed on, my voice thick with anguish. "Do you know why I put those cameras in? After that time, you threatened to jump and the cops came. They told me I wasn't there for you enough. I installed them to make sure you didn't do something stupid, not to spy on you." She seemed genuinely stunned by this. She just stood there frozen. As I held her, I could feel it. This time, her dash to the window was just for show. It lacked the terrifying, unstoppable momentum of her previous attempts. Her heart wasn't in it. "Chloe, if you didn't love me anymore, you could have just told me," I said, my voice rising in a crescendo of righteous anger. "Why did you have to cheat? Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me?" Maybe it was the guilt, or maybe her heart had already moved on. Whatever the reason, she didn't fight back this time. She just stood there in silence. I laid into her, screaming about her infidelity, then breaking down into fake sobs about how she destroyed me, and finally exploding into a towering rage. After nearly an hour of this performance, she finally spoke. "Let's break up." Those 3 words are the sweetest music I had ever heard. I immediately started yelling at her to pack her things and get the hell out, that I never wanted to see her again. She didn't argue. She silently packed a suitcase and walked out the door. God, getting her to say those words was exhausting. I was running out of lines. My life had become a stage play, and everything depended on my acting. The moment she was gone, I called my landlord. I told him I was breaking the lease and moving out tonight. He could keep the remaining month's rent and the security deposit. Whatever I couldn't carry with me, he could throw away. I checked into a hotel for the night. The next morning, I went to my office and resigned, effective immediately, waiving any severance pay. After leaving my job, I didn't go back to my hometown. I bought a ticket to a city where I knew no one. The first thing I did when I arrived was buy a new phone and a new number. I deleted all my old social media accounts, every last trace of my former life. I needed to vanish completely from Chloe's world. I found a new job in that city and worked there for a year before I finally quit and went home. Of course, I had given my parents my new contact information. Over that year, I kept in regular contact with my parents. Every time we talked, I would casually ask if any of my old friends or acquaintances had been looking for me back home. Thankfully, the answer was always a firm no. When I finally returned, I got a temporary job while I studied for the civil service exams. My hometown is a small county-level city. There aren't many great career paths. A government job is the best and most stable option. I don't know if escaping Chloe changed my luck or if I just hit a hot streak, but I passed the exam on my first try. After I started in my new job, some of the older colleagues, especially the women my parents' age, took an immediate interest in my love life. Within days, they were already trying to set me up. After what I'd been through with Chloe, I was extremely cautious. But their enthusiasm was relentless, and my parents were eager for me to settle down. So I started going on the dates they arranged. I was very clear with them, though. I didn't care what the girl looked like or what her family situation was. The number one requirement was that she had to be emotionally stable. Good character was a must. I have to admit, being set up by people you know is a lot more reliable than finding someone on your own. One of my colleagues, Mrs. Peterson, introduced me to her niece, Sarah. Sarah wasn't a bombshell, but she had beautiful, clear skin. As they say, good skin can make up for a lot. On a scale of 1 to 10, she was a solid 7. Most importantly, Sarah was incredibly emotionally stable. She smiled and laughed easily and had zero drama about her. In a small town, everyone is connected somehow. My parents asked around and found out that Sarah's family were good, salt-of-the-earth people who had raised her right. One afternoon, I was on a date with Sarah when I saw a post online that made my eyes go wide. "What is it?" Sarah asked, noticing my expression. "See some big news?" "Look at this," I said, handing her my phone. On the screen was a Reddit post I'd just been reading in a relationship advice forum. The title was something like, "My GF is threatening suicide and I'm at my breaking point." The guy wrote that his girlfriend, Chloe, had an extremely volatile temper, a history of self-harm, and constantly used the threat of jumping out of a window to control him. Any little argument and she'd make a run for it. He said he lived in constant fear. The worst part, he wrote, was that she wasn't bluffing. It was a full sprint, unstoppable launch toward the window every time. He'd been suffering this mental and physical abuse for over a year and felt like he was about to have a nervous breakdown. He was begging for advice on how to break up with her safely. Honestly, the moment I saw the initial post, I thought of Chloe, but I dismissed it as a crazy coincidence. The post even made me think back to the day I escaped that city. After quitting my job, I was so euphoric that I almost wanted to find Mark just to thank him in person. Thank him for stepping up to the plate when I was at my lowest, for lending a helping hand, and then some. He had saved my life. But he was Chloe's co-worker, and I was terrified of running into her. So I suppressed the urge. "Sounds like this Mark's girlfriend has some serious mental health issues," Sarah said, looking at my phone. "What? How do you know his name is Mark?" I asked, surprised. "Look," she said, leaning closer and pointing to a comment. "Someone in the thread recognized the story and doxed him. It says his name is Mark and the girlfriend is Chloe. The comment said he deserves it. Apparently, he stole Chloe from her previous boyfriend." Sure enough, right where she was pointing, the comment laid it all out. I couldn't help but marvel at how large and yet how small the world could be. That I would stumble across an update on Mark and Chloe like this. Mark. Oh, Mark. I thought to myself, all I can do now is pray that someone comes along to steal her from you too. And if they don't, I hope you two are locked together forever. You know, saying to yourself, better you keep her contained than let her out to terrorize another innocent man. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, handing my phone back and linking her arm through mine. "I was just thinking, how could people be so unstable?" I sighed, and at the same time, I was thinking about that poor guy she was with before Mark. He must thank his lucky stars every day. What a fortunate son of a... Have you ever heard the saying, "There's a lid for every pot"? Sarah said with a smile. One of them is an emotional time bomb, and the other is a guy who knowingly breaks up a relationship. They deserve each other. They're a perfect match. You got a point, I said, gently pinching her nose. You're not one of those unstable types, are you? You're asking a question you already know the answer to, she laughed. You think we didn't know your parents were asking around about me and my family? My family asked around about you, too. That's one good thing about a small town. It doesn't take much to find out who people really are. I smiled and didn't say anything because she was right. We knew. A few months later, Sarah and I got engaged. We were married the following year. A year after that, our beautiful daughter was born. And just 6 months later, Sarah was pregnant with our second child. The thing that makes me happiest is that Sarah is completely without drama. Her emotional state is even more stable than mine. I've made a silent vow to myself to spend the rest of my life being good to her and our children.